Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and welcome to a special edition of Asian and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And I'm here today to talk to you about Star Trek Enterprise, Season 2, Episode 10, Vanishing Point. So, this is a Hoshi Sato centered episode played by that of Linda Park. And this episode, one of the things that makes it special is a simple fact. It's a Hoshi episode, and a lot of people really love the character of Hoshi. I like her and everything. But the problem with this character is just like with Ensign Kim and say like Sulu, she doesn't get much to do in the series, and she rarely has a centered episode. Much also to that of Mayweather or Reed. And it's very frustrating because the thing about Enterprise, and originally I did not like Enterprise when it was on air. I tried to watch some episodes, but I wasn't ready to go back into the past, and it was just so primitive with like their technology and stuff. But I get it. I've come around to it now. Like there are some really good episodes and stuff, and I get what they was trying to do. Plus, if you've ever heard my me talk about Star Trek, you know I don't like modern track. Not track, but Trek. And I prefer the older stuff. So I've come around to like this series and stuff. And so one of the things that frustrated me when I did actually watch this series is how little like Ensign Sato does anything like on the show. Because the problem with this is that they went old school with this series. Since it was set so far in the past, 100 years before that of Kirk, they decided, hey, let's kind of like, use that visual style that, Voyager brought with like the CGI and the bright colors and this and that. And, making the technology looking cool. But, let's keep the formula of TOS. The captain does everything, and he has a Vulcan sidekick, and he has like another best friend who's his ally with a thick country accent. They went really old school with that, back to that of the Kirk era. And so because of that, sadly, the other characters really don't get their like too many episodes to shine and everything. Like Mayweather and Reed. They rarely do anything on the show, but they do get their centered episodes, just like Hoshi does. And so I don't know why in the world they will go back to that formula of like really just making it like a pack of three and letting them like lead the show. That frustrates me, like that really, really frustrates me. Especially now after watching Discovery, because Discovery is only one person who really ever does anything on the show. And so I don't like that. You have an ensemble cast, you have a bridge crew, you use them, like, what I'm saying? But, like, I've always liked Hoshi. She was always my favorite and stuff, She was sweet, she was shy, she was slightly timid, and, she had, like, blue division, and I love the color blue. And so, like, when it comes to her, she's kind of an amalgamation, in my opinion, of a couple of characters. Uhura because of communications. Sulu because both characters are Japanese and they have the same initials, H and S. And that of Harry Kim. Why? because they're both ensigns and they never rank up. And they barely do anything on the show in terms of like having a centric episode. So I always looked at them as kind of like the amalgamation, and they just crammed all that into her. And a little bit of Barkley because she doesn't like the transporter, which is what this episode is about. Now, Hoshi, she is played by that of Linda Park. And, I don't understand the casting logic of old school Star Trek. Like, you have Captain Picard, a Frenchman, played by a British man with no French accent. You have Khan, who is like an Indian Punjabi, and he's played by a Mexican man in the original series, but then in the movie, a white British man. Then, the younger version in New Modern Track was played by that of an Indian Latino. Then the bloodline somehow switched on over to Asian for one of his descendants. I don't understand that logic. Or you'll have Sulu, who's Japanese, played by a Japanese man in the original series, but then in the movie is played by a South Korean man. And I'm not sure in Modern Trek what race he is because the actor just got cast and I don't know who that is. Then you have Hoshi Sato, a Japanese type name played by a South Korean actress. So it's kind of like, okay, once you cast somebody, why not just switch their race on the show? They could have made her South Korean, but whatever. And I've always liked Linda Park, like she's a really good actress who's just so natural and stuff. However, sadly, I haven't seen her in much since Star Trek, to tell you the truth. I saw her in that third Jurassic Park movie. But all the shows she's been on since aren't my type of show. So I really haven't seen her in anything since this, which is quite a shame. I mean, she has starred in lots of stuff. But it's just like I said before, those just aren't my shows, And when it comes to her, when it comes to her and when it comes to Star Trek, when it comes to Asian representation, there's very little in Asian representation. Star Trek has been on for about 60 years. And they've only had about, let's see, 1, 2, 3, about 4, maybe 5 live action Asian stars who had a prominent role on the show. Keiko don't count because she was just like a guest appearance. And neither does Nurse Ogawa because she was a couple of guest appearances. Maybe Lower Decks has an Asian character, but I don't know. There's this one character with black hair. I've never watched the show or really pay attention to the cast. I'm not really sure. Except for that one episode I watched, but I'm not really sure, like I said before. But yeah, like Sulu was the first, And then, of course, there's the second Sulu from the movies. Then there is Hoshi, and then there is La'an, and of course Harry Kim. That's like 5. And it's just kind of like you rarely see an Asian person guest star on Star Trek. And it's just kind of like, why? Like, I kind of get why they didn't do it in the 60s because they were so prejudiced and racist and stuff back then. And the Klingons were based off of Asian people. But, like, in the 80s and the 90s and 2000s, how come there weren't more? Like, I don't understand. And, before she joined, there was only 2 main prominent Asian stars, 2 male, and she was the third main prominent one. And it's not only just Asian people, it's also Latinos as well that they rarely have on the show. Speaking of this show, so this episode, Vanish Point, right? It came out back in 2002, 20 years ago, well, over 20 years ago. And it's kind of a combination of, well, of two episodes because it relies on that old fashioned Star Trek trope of there's something wrong with the transporter and everything. And and it reminds me of the Next Phase, which is episode Next Generation. Next Phase is one of my all-time favorite episodes of TNG. It's amazing. Now, this episode was written by Brandon Braga and that of Rick Berman. And this episode frustrates me. It frustrates me because everything was good until you get to the ending. And it's almost like it took two guys to write this, and they basically just combined two different episodes, kind of. And then the ending completely sucked. Like if your ending does not land, then the whole episode just feels like a dud. And that's what this feels like. It's basically a dream sequence. She hallucinates throughout the entire episode. And you can kind of tell maybe she's hallucinating because the other characters are being very rude to her and everything. But then they start to act normal. So it's kind of like, well, what the heck is going on? And then you find out. And it's almost like once they got to the end, they just gave up on writing. Like, there's some other things that happen right before the end where it's just kind of like, really? That simple? Like, that's what you write? And then that ending, like, y'all just give up? Were y'all tired or something? Were you tired of copying from another episode? Another episode that was a heck of a lot more interesting than this? Like, I don't get it. And it sucks because, I like Hoshi, and this is a Hoshi-centered episode, Like, her mirror counterpart became the Empress and everything. Like, that was cool, you know what I'm saying? And if only they would have changed the ending and make it a little bit more scientific, I would have appreciated that because don't just give up, man. This is Star Trek, you know what I'm saying? Like, it has to be not just good, it gotta be great. And for the most part, this is just good, but then it gets okay. But one of the best things was that of Linda's acting. Like I said before, she is so natural and stuff. And so the episode starts off with Trip and that of Hoshi. They're on an alien planet. And it's a good old sound stage. And, so they're, taking pictures and studying these hieroglyphics in a language she cannot decipher from an uninhabited planet. And so all of a sudden, like a diamagnetic storm starts to happen, and they need to hightail it on out of there. And the captain is trying his best to get Hoshi to transport back to that of the ship because they can't take a shuttle pod because the storm is just too bad. And I like the term diamagnetic storm. Like, that just sounds cool, you know what I'm saying? And so she's all like, yo, man, these caves and ruins, they've been around for thousands of years. This should survive the storm. But no, it's too dangerous, and he wants them to teleport. She has a fear of the transporter. The transporter is kind of relative new technology because this is way back right after first contact, but 100 years before that of TOS. So they mostly just fly around in pods and shuttles and stuff. And they mostly just use a transporter for non-living stuff. But their technology is improving. to the point where they do transport a couple of like people here and there for small like things. And so she is completely terrified that she doesn't like the idea of her molecules getting like separated and like scattered and put inside like the transporter buffer and everything. And so Trip goes first, even though he's the commanding officer and stuff. And she goes second. And when she teleports, she's back, on the ship and everything. And so everything seems fine, right? But then throughout the episode, certain things start to happen with her. She starts to feel a little uneasy. She's very like paranoid. She's constantly going back and forth to sick bay, to flocks, to scan her molecules and everything. What the heck can I say that? Molecules and everything. There I go. But he assures her, yo, everything is fine. Then, when she's in the mess hall and she sees the rest of the main cast, Mayweather, Trip, and that of Malcolm Reed, she, wants to sit with them, but they are acting like they don't see her. And so she has to really get their attention and stuff. And so they can see she's still worried and everything. And they start to tell her about a person named Cyrus Ramsey and how he died during like a transport. And I was expecting her to kind of like freak out, but she's just kind of almost in a not necessarily drained, but just kind of blasé kind of like feeling, because she's still feeling paranoid about using the transporter technology and stuff, right? And so at some point, the captain is all like, we need you to go back down to the planet and get the shuttlecraft and everything. But you're going to be taking a pod. So it's going to be her, Malcolm, and no, not Malcolm, but Mayweather, and that of Trip. Now, Malcolm and Mayweather, they're barely in this episode. And I mean, they are barely in this episode. But then one night or morning, I don't know the time on Star Trek, because everything looks like it's nighttime. We look out the window and the view screen and everything. She overslept, and when she gets to the bridge, this is the first indication that something odd is kind of going on. Everybody on the bridge is being rude to her. The captain's pissed because he's all like, the aliens down on the planet, they kidnapped and took hostage that of like Mayweather and Trip. And she assures him that, yo, there are like no aliens on the planet. It's uninhabitable and everything. Why are my lips like, I can't, uninhabitable? What the heck is going on with me tonight? Can't get my words out. And T'Pol's being pissed, all like, you overslept and blah, 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 blah. And so the aliens are talking, and it's in the language that the universal translator can't decipher. She's trying her best, but she just can't get it to work. So they're pissed at her, and he relieves her of duty. Then when she goes back to the mess hall at some point, she sees T'Pol reading a book, and she tries to get her attention so she can sit with her. But T'Pol is kind of like acting like she can't see her, similar to how the guys did earlier. Then when she finally gets her attention, T'Pol tells her the hostage situation has been like taken care of, but it's only been an hour and stuff. Basically, the captain, he's all like, look, I'll give you back like some of the stuff we took down from like the planet. I'll erase the pictures, just give us our people back, and that's what they did. So she's very shocked and surprised that it was just like that simple. And when she finds out who was able to talk to the aliens, this other officer who's under her, she couldn't believe it because this person's not qualified enough like she is. She's a linguistic communications officer, and she's really good at deciphering other languages and stuff. because her character is one of the main people who paved the way for, like, the universal translator being the way it is in other Star Trek shows. And side note, her character is chronologically the first one to say beam, like, beam me up, like when using the transporter and stuff. Even though it was used all the time in TOS. But then the freaky stuff starts to happen. She'll touch something and her hand will just go completely through something. Or when she takes a shower, no, that's a little bit later. So she's looking at her reflection and she's phasing out. Then when she takes a shower, the water's kind of like passing through her. Then at other time, when she touches things, her hands will go through them. She's going back and forth to Six Baby. He's all like, yo, ain't nothing wrong with you and stuff. But she knows something is wrong with her and stuff. But nobody will believe her. Then she completely vanishes and disappears. This, the captain and T'Pol, they are alerted of this, and they are worried, and now they are looking for her. Phlox basically, him and like somebody else are scanning around the ship, and he's all like, look for her, what's it called, cellular residue and everything, because she would pretty much just be like gone now. And one of the things I like is how she's reacting to this. Like when they're talking about her and she's in sick bay, she's not acting like a Starfleet officer. She's not acting like a grown woman. She's acting like a worried, like, little girl sitting on a desk with her feet propped up and scrunched up and, and just like worried and stuff. And because in her mind, she knows she's here, but they think she's like dead or whatever. And so she literally even has to hear the captain, contact her father and try to explain there's been an accident and everything. But then the craziest thing also happens. Before she started phasing in and out, she started to hear alien voices, similar to that kidnapped Mayweather and Trip. But then she sees the aliens and everything. And they're planting a bomb on the ship all throughout, like, the ship and everything. So she has no way of contacting people, but she has to figure out a way. So then when she's in the captain's quarters, this is when the writing starts to get bad, and I feel like the writers just gave up. She uses Morse code. She starts just putting her fingers through everything, and then she's in the light fixture, I guess, and she's making Morse code go with like the buttons. The captain's able to figure this out within seconds, and then she heads like, the engineering and the Jeffries tube to kind of like try to like stop the aliens, but of course she can't. She can just observe them. But then she just starts putting her fingers all through their bombs and it shuts them off, only for them to turn them back on. And her constantly just putting her fingers through there and like wiggling them around and destroying like the electricity in there. And I was just kind of like, how did she know that would do that? When she was playing around with her ship systems, she never was able to turn anything off. Nothing short circuit. Like, how is this possible? You know what I'm saying? Then she sees the aliens they're using, like, a transporter, because the aliens are cloaked. They're phased out of, like, time and space, I guess you could say. And so she hops on a transporter, and then all of a sudden, she's back at the beginning of the episode, transporting back to the ship from that of the planet. She tries to warn them of the aliens, but they're like, what the heck are you talking about? And she realizes for about 2 minutes or so, she hallucinated the entire thing. It was basically all a dream, or a nightmare, if you will. And I'm just kind of like, you've got to be kidding me. Not only was she phasing in and out, and nobody can see her, we don't hear no technobabble. There's no scientific solution to bring her back, like next phase. there's no scientific like way to figure out like how she's able to get their attention like Jordy did with the table and putting his hand through, and then Data scanned his hand by mistake and it was thicker and harder to go through. None of that stuff. And then there's the kicker. It was just all a dream. That's just messed up, man. Like, there's a reason why fans just initially did not like Enterprise, and it's reasons like this. It's just like it's like they was tired and just gave up on writing or something. And that's such a disgrace. It's a disgrace to Star Trek fans. It's a disgrace to that of Linda. Like, you gotta be better than that. I mean, for the most part, it is an entertaining, creepy episode, but it's just that ending that lets you down. Happy Asian and Pacific Islander month, everybody. Alrighty, well, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.